Okay, hello, Lynn and Marguerite. How are you both doing today?
Good.
Good.
Thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of the peer specialist in the behavioral health and human services workforce. And Lynn and Marguerite are going to talk about their experiences with that. So I thought we could start off with some introductions. Marguerite, want to talk a little bit about yourself and how you got into this work?
Sure. My name is Marguerite Galindo. I'm a peer coordinator for the Department of Health Services. I'm also a CPS trainer. And I got into this work about 5 years ago. I worked in crisis services following an exam that I took for certification. I got into crisis services and I worked in a clinic that took anybody who walked in through the door. We helped them get medical insurance and medicinal management. And then I provided peer support as voluntary services if they elected for that. And basically I did that. And then I did that for a couple of years. And then I went to the WIPC, which is the Wisconsin Peer Specialist Employment Initiative. I worked as a workforce development coordinator there, basically doing privately funded trainings and coordinating them and working with leaders around the state. And then I moved into DHS, where I work as a peer coordinator, basically deepening the values of peer support and wanting to expand the workforce to the best of our ability through technical assistance and support.
Yeah, and what about you, Lynn? I know you work at the Department of Health Services with Marguerite. How did you land where you are?
I do. So I'm a parent peer specialist and certified peer specialist trainers. And so I first got into the work with my son, and he had both co-occurring mental health and substance use. And so really in the parent avenue, I got into it at first, and then became a certified peer specialist and was intrigued. And so kind of did that as a side when I was a contract administrator for Department of Interior, and then worked for my tribe for a couple of years, built a program, got it going, and then came to DHS. And it's really a passion, especially to make sure, to really ensure that parents have someone to walk alongside them when their youth, when the child they're parenting is going through substance use and mental health concerns and so that's really what drives me every day, is to try and move the parent peer services along, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm hearing the role of peer specialist is pretty varied. There's peer specialists for mental health conditions, for substance use disorders, as well as for parents with supporting their children with all of those things. Yeah.
Yes.
So if we could talk a little bit about kind of the umbrella role of peer specialists, what is the objective of the peer specialist?
I would say the objective is to provide strength-based, person-centered, trauma-informed care, and we do that by offering a voluntary service. So people they elect to work with us. We offer informal support amidst the medical work that they may be involved in, or as an alternative to like hospitalization. So we offer support in that sense. Lynn?
Yeah, and so for peer specialists, it's really providing hope and being that person that kind of meets them where they're at and walking alongside. And parents, it's really valuable to have sometimes when a parent meets with a parent peer specialist, it's actually the first time they're telling their story. And a lot of times are parenting youth with these challenges, and it's hard on the family, it's hard on them, their family. And unlike if their child was sick or had cancer or something, like there would be food trains and all these concessions made and help with that. And with mental health and substance use, there's really not that, and there's more of a stigma attached to it. And so it's really trying to break down that stigma and then share that this service is available.
Yeah, very necessary, kind of like navigating the unknown with someone who's perhaps already been through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you could describe how would a peer specialist kind of spend their day? Who would they be meeting with, or what activities might their day be filled with?
It could depend. It depends on if they're in a respite or in an integrated service. I'll go with integrated services because that's what I worked in. So basically, the person would come in to see me, and or I would go to visit them. I may be transporting them to a medical visit, or we may be ending up going out for a walk by the lake. But basically, we are focused on the goals of their treatment plan, and we're conversing about anything that they really want to talk about. Basically, providing them what reflections and strength-based affirmations, pointing out their strengths and what they have to offer, and really just like exploring where they want to go within their recovery, and then keeping those things in mind to plan for that and offering culturally relevant resources afterwards.
Yeah, for parent peer specialists, I think for this interview, I'm just going to go with that because they're very similar, and so we all have different experiences. So parent peer specialist is really maybe advocating at an IEP meeting at school, maybe it's going to a doctor's appointment, talking through some things that are going on, how it's affecting the family, how you can support that parent, and it's really they direct the conversation, they direct the peer services, maybe finding resources that are available for the different systems that they're intersecting with. But it's really just being with them and being available for the things that they want to explore in their family journey of wellness.
And what would it look like for someone interested in becoming a peer specialist or a parent peer specialist? What is the education or the preparation path? How long does it take? What steps are needed?
For the CPS, you have to have lived experience with mental health and or substance use challenges. You need to have an HSCD or a GED level of education, and then you need to take a training for 48 hours and then take an exam for certification.
And that's the same for parent peer specialists. So that's really experience. You don't have to self-identify as mental health and or substance use. And for identifying to be eligible, like we don't have you take a test or anything. It's just your word. Like there's no verification needed. And that's kind of the whole way that peers work, is that it's meeting you where you're at. And like, you don't have to prove anything to us. It's really, you're guiding the work.
Yeah, so what really sets apart the work of a peer specialist from a counselor or a social worker is that the lived experience is kind of a requirement, whereas it might happen in other cases, but isn't required.
Right. And the fact that we get to share our lived experience with the person.
Yeah, whereas in other settings, it might be not necessarily frowned upon, but not recommended to share lived experience.
Right.
What would you say are some of the unique perks or draws of this job? Maybe a little bit of what I just spoke to, but I'm curious what you would say are kind of the sparkling things about being a peer specialist.
I think that the fact that you can use your lived experience and that we're in recovery ourselves. So it's not the reason why we go into it, but it definitely causes an enhancement in our own recovery. It keeps us personally self-aware, constantly looking at ourselves as we're navigating the relationship with the individual, helping to see somebody get better. When the lights go on and they turn the corner and the recovery process is taking hold and they've decided that that's what they want to do. And I think that being able to go out on walks and to be out in the community with the person, to meet with them wherever they want to meet and to meet them where they're at, that they are the experts and they get to choose what works for them. It doesn't really matter what I think would work for them, but really supporting them and what they want and helping them discover that by asking open-ended questions and being curious about who they are. I think those are all draws for us.
Yeah, all of that, right? And also with parents, it's a little bit different of really building that trust and then sharing their story. That's the most powerful thing, especially when you're in a group with maybe a couple parent peers and they're sharing their story and their journey and kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. And that brings tears to my eyes every time we do it, because it's parents that are sharing their journey, and the love between a parent and a child is so intense in that when you see your child suffering with mental health and substance use, right? You need to do something. And when you don't have those tools and you feel like you're alone, and it's really breaking that isolation, and just being with them is the most powerful thing to me. And then, like Marguerite said, like seeing the progress, and it's self-directed, right? We're just there to support them. And so to see that and to see their self-esteem increase and their advocacy and all those things, add for themselves, for their kids, for the, systems that we intersect with, right? And so that's really powerful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm curious for our next question to talk a little bit about job prospects. And of course, you two are very well experienced in the state of Wisconsin, and it might differ in other states. But what would you say about job prospects for peer specialists here?
I think job prospects are good. I think that there's the peer specialists are going into many different fields. Right now, we can peer specialists can work in a peer-run respite or a peer recovery center, which is like a peer-run organization, meaning that more than 51% of the employees are peers and it's peer leadership. Or they could work in integrated services where they're working alongside of a medical or clinical staff and providing that informal support in between the medical support or the clinical support that person is receiving. I think that peers are working in like businesses and EAP services and so on, and that there's an opportunity for peer support to continue to grow. And I think that's pretty much the prospects for peer support.
Yeah, there's also for parent peers, like in schools, I think in settings, in different programs, there is in grant opportunities and communities of how do we support those parents. And so there's a big initiative, especially after the pandemic, to help support those parents and peers as well. And so at crisis, when a youth has a crisis in substance use or mental health, like to help support that parent, the family. I think there's a lot of different places that peers can work. And we see that expanding, Margaret, and I see that expanding every day. Like we just had a couple-hour conversation about it this morning and did a presentation for another group that's sharing. So I think it's expanding all the time. And I really think that when we get to the point where anyone in the state of Wisconsin or the world wants peer services and can get them, then really our job is done.
Yeah, there's definitely an increased demand. There's more grant funding for peer specialists. And it feels like there's a strong movement around centering lived experience in treatment. In addition, of course, to clinical expertise, but really valuing lived experience as an important part of the process. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the range of compensation available for peer specialists and parent peer specialists. What have you seen in Wisconsin?
In Wisconsin, I generally see anywhere between like $17 to $25 an hour with benefits if it's full-time. If not, then it's on a part-time basis and the benefits just aren't included then.
Yeah, this is very similar for parent peer specialists. I would say the same thing.
Yeah, so someone can be hired on with an agency or with a county, for example, for a full-time position, or they might do this in addition to other work that they're doing.
Sure.
Awesome. And I'm curious if there are any other perks or benefits or internships available for peer specialists, anything else that comes to mind before we wrap up?
I don't think that we don't have very many paid internships, that we haven't like created that yet. So that's not something that we've been doing, but I think that on the job training is like the best that can be done, and the fact that we have like communities of practice where peers can come and they can gain their continuing education units for recertification purposes. So I think that that's something that we provide for free, and it's a way to keep their certification active and so on.
Yeah, the paid internships, that's definitely a goal. One of the peer centers that we fund is actually having, so when people take the training and then they're not quite sure about how to navigate the employment world, they're actually having a couple people do like a 6-month and just kind of on the job training and to be comfortable with it. And I think that's really a model that we'll see continue on in both peer and parent peer specialists, because it's a lot of, when you have a lot of lived experience and then try to use it, it takes a lot out of you, right? And so having that amount of really sharing yourself and your lived experience, I think there's definitely some room for some on-the-job training type things. And as Marguerite said, take any kind of training as possible. So I think that because we don't have to have formal education, there's not any kind of financial incentives really, but I think we'll see it continue to grow in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely feels like it's headed that way. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lynn and Marguerite. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, I think that covers it.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you'll continue to see peer grow in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here to talk about peer specialists and parent peer specialists and peer support.